Oh, hello.
Hello. I was making coffee.
Yeah, me too.
Needed coffee. How was your day?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been all right. They still let me play on a forklift, which I think is such a bad idea.
Yeah, I'm in insurance, and that just, from my standpoint, I'm thinking class. Wouldn't insure you, but class. I want to play on a forklift.
But yeah, otherwise good. And then Monday's a therapy night, so that was great. So yeah, it's just been really good. It's the first therapy session I've had in a long time where she was like, "So anything go wrong?" And I'm like, "No, I've literally nothing to talk about."
Yeah, I've got a 2 week break. My therapy is normally on a Monday, but I've got a 2 week break, so it's quite nice actually, just to have a little space and gap from it.
Yeah. Right. So, shall we get started?
Okay, first
So,
question is from Michelle. She
Oh
says,
God.
"What is this about your treasure box, Matt?"
this stuff that Tom's like doing at the moment, I pressed a random box, treasure box, and I gifted a treasure box, and the ladies in the live got all excited about getting access to my box, and that was as far as it was.
Say no more. Okay, I'm going to go on to a serious one.
Okay.
Jeremy Felix says, "If you could have a button that turns off your ADHD, I'm dyslexic. Someone asked me and I said no."
So, if there were a button to switch it off, would we use it?
Yeah. Or is there?
What do you reckon, Matt?
For me, no, because I've managed to get through this life not being diagnosed. So I expect, having been diagnosed in May and getting a better understanding of myself, why would I change that? Because I'm beginning to see, particularly from a career standpoint, it's been very good to me, even though I didn't realise it. Personal life, utter shit show, but that's the other side of the coin. How about yourself?
I made it this far into what I personally feel is a pretty good life. Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it did not start well, and there are parts of the middle that I could have done without. But like, this is who I am. This is who I was born as, and there are elements of ADHD that I use so much. And like I can feel hyperfocus kicking in, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna let him have it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens now, the hyperfocus is in charge. Like I will get so much done. So yeah, I think it's that element of like grief and regret that you get when you're diagnosed. But no, I don't think I would switch it off. I think there are traits that I could do without, or like a dimmer switch on certain traits would be nice, but I wouldn't get rid of it. I
No.
I didn't. It wasn't my choice to have it to begin with, but no, I don't think I'd get rid of it.
Harry asks, "What about a button that makes your ADHD times 10?"
So, as in 10 times worse when it's bad, or 10 times better when it's good?
Let's go with the positive for now.
No, because I struggle with the hyperfocus and some aspects, the spontaneity. I think the bits that I love about my ADHD and the way that my brain processes information differently, as challenging as it is sometimes in terms of trying to explain myself, what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking, I think I'd struggle with that times 10.
Yeah, too much of a good thing, you know.
The speed of thought,
Mm.
which I do struggle with. Um, it's an interesting question, but no. But then again, I'm only 5 months in, so maybe if you ask me in a year's time when I've got a better handle on things, maybe I'd feel differently.
I don't know. Ten times hyperfocus. None of you would see me for weeks. I would be gone.
Yeah.
Like once the hyperfocus decides it's time to play. I mean, that's why sometimes I struggle to go to sleep at a reasonable hour because the hyperfocus kicked in at midnight, and now I can't do a damn thing.
It's the biggest, one of the biggest. Oh no, I've got loads of struggles, but I think it's the one that I find the most impactful is just trying to go to sleep. I mean, the mind is so busy, and I haven't taken medication. I haven't gone down that route yet. But 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, the mind is just awake and wants to do. It needs feeding, So that's difficult. That's really difficult because I do suffer because I'm old.
We're naturally night owls, aren't we?
Yeah, when no one else is. But then in fairness, if I look back to when my kids were younger, I wasn't much use then.
Well, I was going to ask, sort of my go-to question at the moment for these Q&As is like looking back to like your childhood and stuff, or even like the early days before your kids were born. Do you sort of look back and now have this reframe of your life experience because you're like, oh, that was definitely ADHD?
I do, but mine's a little bit complicated insofar as my childhood, my upbringing was, and again, everyone's experiences is different, so I don't mean it in a comparative standpoint. My father was a very angry, frustrated man. Back in the day, I'd get the right hander, but I was sort of brought up with that. But he was the way he was for the reasons that he was, which I now know. So with huge amounts of love and compassion and empathy for him. But I wasn't allowed to show any difficult or negative emotions. And there was always this fear because of the anger. So I was quite, believe it or not, a very introverted, quiet, diminutive, out of fear of getting rah. So I don't know how much the ADHD, only insofar as that I really was busy in my head. I was very nervous. I was highly sensitive to criticism, observations, but it's difficult to try and correlate what I would have been like just with having the ADHD as a child versus the situation I had with parenting. And even now, I mean, my father won't talk about it. He can't correlate it in his head. He's got all the traits, but he won't talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about this, my journey, what I'm doing. But I understand because of his trauma why he doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I sort of look back on the childhood occasionally, especially because I'm, in therapy and stuff, sort of looking at all the trauma and going, well, would I have coped better had I not had the ADHD? And I think the conclusion I've come to is it really made no difference. Maybe it caused a little extra damage on the edges of it, but the trauma was the trauma, and I don't think any neurotype would have had a good time regardless.
It's interesting because, I mean, I've been quite candid to a few people because of if I take the childhood, what I didn't learn in terms of how to deal healthily with anger, hurt, frustration, I internalized a lot. And that blew up around mid-30s, had a huge impact on my wife at the time, friendships. I was a pretty angry man. Now, I'm not a violent man, but it was just like I was just like a volcano, always simmering, and anything could tip me over the edge. Now, I wonder what it would have been like having not had the childhood and not having the ADHD, because I think both of those exacerbated the other, where you've got the emotional dysregulation and I've got no healthy coping mechanisms to deal with any sort of conflict whatsoever. So everything for me sort of just spiraled outside of control. But I didn't know why. I couldn't understand why, because I'd never looked at my childhood and I didn't know ADHD existed.
Yeah. Well, we have questions.
Molly have asked any tips for learning routines like brushing teeth and showering, and any general tips for better self-care.
Ooh.
Wow. I think that's one of my most embarrassing traits, which I don't talk about. That routine of brushing teeth, regularly having a shower, because the whole thing about getting into the shower, I've got a shower over a bath and it's very powerful. Once I'm in there, it's fine. But the whole idea of doing the process, it's up there for me in terms of loading and unloading the dishwasher, which just fills me with dread. I tend to, from a work standpoint, because I work from home, which again is not great because I don't have to leave the house, so you could quite easily fall into the wrong habits. But I tend to just try and set my alarm, and there's quite a few alarms, about 8 or 9, to the point where I get up, and then I force myself. The first thing I do is put the kettle on, then go into the bathroom. But it's not perfect. So any tips from anyone else, welcome.
See, I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I hear that this is a common trait amongst us neurodivergents. I think so. I don't have the trait, but I think it's because I have a sensory issue when it comes to my beard and my teeth.
Yeah.
So it can't feel uh, dirty. It can't feel left for too long. And I can't bear the sensation of furry teeth in any like. And I love sugar.
Yeah.
I love sweets, but they give you furry teeth, right? So I think that sensory issue has forced me to develop a sort of obsession with my hygiene.
Yeah.
And I think if I didn't have that sensory issue, because I still feel that I don't want to, I still feel like I don't want to go. It's effort. I don't want to go have a bath. I don't want to brush my teeth. I just want to sit here in my own mess. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But because of that sensory overload of it just feels wrong, I'm like, I gotta go bath. I gotta get rid of this feeling. So it's sort of an added benefit almost.
Yeah, I mean, I've got this. It's not an issue, but I'm going to sound like a right delicate little flower. I've got really sensitive skin. I mean, really sensitive skin. So if I get in the shower, I like the feeling of hot or cold. Nothing in between. Tepid doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But after that, my skin just. I mean, sometimes it just feels sharp, quite painful. It's so sensitive, which is another reason why I have to have a shower. I have to get it absolutely right. You've got to find the right temperature. Then I've got to get out. Then I dry myself. And then I'm lazy with drying myself because I want to walk around the house and air dry, but I can't do that because I've got to be on a Zoom call. So, but basically, I'm just making excuses about why I can't, not why I should.
I think the only real advice that I can give, I'm just going to have to steal it straight from you, which is try and force that routine. Because, like, I get it, the fact that we don't want to, the effort. I mean, the way you've described your process sounds quite tiring. Like, it's not just about the shower; it's about all the aftercare, all the upkeep that has to be done just right, so that you don't get a sensory issue because of your skin. But at the same time, I'm like, but if you allow yourself to just sit in it, you could get quite unhealthy, like in a general sense, you can get quite sick. And would that not add more stress?
Oh, it would. I mean, yeah. I like you. I've got all my beard oils and balms, and I love. Yeah, it's like I like half the sensation of being in the shower, just standing in the shower, where could quite happily stand there for hours until I'm pruned. But then it's the rigmarole of actually getting out, and then a scratchy towel, and then I've got to dry myself, and then I put something on, and then I'm scratchy. I just don't have the balance right. It's something which I know that I've got to do, and I'm certainly better than I was 6-7 months ago, but it's just not perfect. You know, I like to look good, feel good, you know, have the shave. I suppose I need someone to come and do it for me. I need to be paid like a Roman general.
Interject. So part of Marlise's question was also tips for better self-care. So I take that as not just hygienically. I take that as like mental safe care.
I take time out every day, every single day, just for me, and it might be 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Just to sit and just to check in with myself. And I have done that since before I discovered that I was ADHD because of where I've suffered in the past with my mental health. And I know it's cliche, but the water, I drink a lot of water. I eat well, but I like to cook, and I know that's not easy for everyone, but I genuinely enjoy cooking. I get a dopamine rush from that, and just a bit of exercise. You know, I'm not out there pounding the pavements or doing X, Y, and Z, but I think I'm getting a better balance where I'm putting me first. That I think that helps in terms of the mindset and giving you or certainly for me, gives me the drive to tackle a day.
Yeah, my self-care tends to revolve around either music or comic books. I have to engage in those activities in some way, shape, or form. So I started turning walking into a game. There's a company that you can rack up virtual miles using like a pedometer or a Apple Watch or whatever, and they'll send you a medal when you're done, and that became obsessive. But it also allows me time to listen to my music.
Yeah. I
And
think
that's
that sounds
become
similar to the running. I mean, I started running just under 2 years ago, and I hate it. I mean, I hate it. I'm not built for running, but there's a couple of aspects which I've realised since being diagnosed, and what helps is I have the music on. I have the Strava app where I can set myself targets, and I get medals and pings to tell you how you're progressing. So I'm getting that little reward. And actually, in running, you can do the body doubling because you're not doing it seriously. And I waddle around, I quite enjoy it, but I'm outside, I'm in nature, it's something healthy. And that rush you get when you finish, regardless of where it is, and you're running with other people, I think all contributes to, getting me around wherever I'm running.
Yeah, it sort of becomes a little community moment, isn't it?
I have more questions.
Oh, apologies.
So, where do we go? Chrissy Nicole, do you agree that you have a lot of empathy as being an ADHDer?
Yeah, I know I get teased for being one of the older people in this little community, and that's fine. But I am a father, and I'm a father to 4 amazing kids, and I have that empathy towards other people, and I feel very protective already of these virtual people in this virtual world, which, if they're struggling, I want to go and fix it, I want to go and help it, I want to pick people up. So I think you can be empathetic, but I think you can sometimes lean into that empath where you start taking on other people's energies, which is not good for your own mental health.
Yeah. I think I did a lot of that many years ago without realizing what any of it was. So I became this sort of very specific kind of people pleaser where I always wanted to be helping people to my own detriment. Like I'd bleed for others and then I couldn't stem the bleeding. Whereas now I've realized that I really want to help people and I've got the empathy for that, but I'm understanding the healthy aspect of that, which is I help you, absolutely, but not to the point where I'm now the one that needs help.
Do you find when you look back and you say you had the empathy and that overlap into people pleasing, were you doing that because of the gratification, the reward that you got from helping people? But was it healthy insofar as you allowed other people? Because I think there's that balance between not wanting to be helped yourself because you feel like a burden, but at the same point was that because you felt like a burden or you just didn't need the help? Because I think there's I'm always interested in that dynamic that you get people pleasers that are deemed to be used, but actually we're the ones, certainly from my standpoint, would push people away to say, no, I don't want that help, I don't need that help.
Yeah, well, it was sort of a worth thing where I'd say, well, I'll help you because you're clearly worth helping, but don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I don't, I'm not worth this kind of attention. I'm not worth this kind of reciprocation. And unfortunately, I think I associated with a lot of people that were perfectly fine with that dynamic. Like, oh yeah, he'll always be around for us, but I'm not helping him out. And I think that's where the unhealthy dynamic kicked in. It was that I was giving too much, but also I was giving to the wrong people.
I have more questions.
Yeah.
Tom, he says, since being diagnosed and realizing you're neurodivergent, can you now see it in other people around you?
Oh my God, I can't stop seeing it.
I don't think, I don't know, no, but yes, I can see it started to see it in terms of the mannerisms, but I think a lot of it is I still mask I call it jazz hands, because I work in a corporate environment and I can't bounce around as I normally do when I'm at home. So I struggle with the whole what's masking, what's coping, what's normal, because we all do it. And then I'm still working out mine. I think I'm still too early to be confident about pointing to someone and going, hey, have you got ADHD? And then getting it wrong and then feeling awful.
In the job interview for the job I'm currently doing, I flat out asked the person who is now my boss, "Do you have ADHD?" she was like, "You're not the first person to ask." I'm like, okay, it's just, no offense, but it's pretty clear that you do.
It's strange because I suppose I chanced upon my ADHD just through other people making comments. And even now, it's like, so what does ADHD supposed to look like? I know what it feels like for me, but what are the visuals? I don't know. Maybe I exude them and people go, yeah, he's got ADHD, but I don't know. I can't anyway.
Your right hand is doing a lot of telegraphing for it right now.
Yeah.
I've got more questions.
Okay.
So Luke has asked, is caffeine and alcohol extra add up for you? So example, he can't drink coffee and then sleep early, whereas a lot of people can.
Oh yeah, no, I'll probably have another coffee before bed tonight.
Yeah, it's calming. I just find coffee it realigns me. I just like the taste. I love the taste of coffee. And if you throw in some chocolate biscuits and stuff, heaven.
I'm like Nick. If I have more than 3 coffees in a day, I won't sleep, and I can't have coffee after 5 o'clock. Otherwise, I will be up all night.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't affect me. I just like the taste. I think it just, yeah. Alcohol. I'm not a big drinker.
No.
Oh, that's a lie. Sorry, I'm not a frequent drinker, but when I go out, I will have quite a lot.
I did a lot of drinking back in the day, and I think I burnt through it. I realized I don't like being drunk all that much. I don't like that sensation. So like special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, maybe I'll have a drink. But yeah, I've sort of lost the love for it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like a gin and tonic. I do like a decent beer, but it's not. It doesn't form part of my daily or weekly routine. It's more of a treat for me, to be honest.
Yeah, like if somebody's like, should we go out for a drink or should we have a cup of coffee? I'll be like, oh, I'll have a cup of coffee, no problem. Drink, I don't know. I gotta be in the right place for that.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from Quintita. Did you have a period of grief after diagnosis?
Still in it. Haven't navigated it completely. It comes and goes. Work, relationships, kids is a killer. That I really struggle with.
Okay, so I have another question that leads right into that. Lacey actually asks, what's one tip that you would give a parent of an ADHD to help understand their child better?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
What's one tip you'd give a parent of an ADHD to help them understand their child better? So you've got an ADHD child. Is there any tips that you could give the parent?
Patience. Listen. Don't think you understand. Listen, play it back and be patient with the way that they're trying to explain stuff. It's difficult because if I look back, there's things that I know that I struggled to articulate, and even, up until my diagnosis, I didn't have the ability to articulate it as a 48-year-old man. So imagine what it's like as a child. I think it's just providing that safe space to allow them to try and explain as best they can and just be curious, because all they want to do is be heard. They want to be understood.
Yeah, I just caught a glimpse of a comment from a friend of mine that I think was hugely important and something I wish I would have been told as a child. Neurodivergent kids are not lazy.
Yeah.
I think the term lazy is such a write-off, minimizing term used to just... It's sort of that old-fashioned ideology of like, well, if you're not trying to be involved, you must be lazy. Like, there are so many variables you haven't considered. Just the general I don't want to is not enough. There's so much more to it than just laziness. And I despise that word because it was thrown in my face so much as a kid. And I now know that I'm looking back on
as an adult.
Overwhelming and as an adult. Yeah, I wasn't lazy. I was overwhelmed, or I just flat out did not see why that task needed to be done. Like, you're just trying to placate me with busy work. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do something else, you
That's
know?
one thing that I don't know if this is an ADHD thing or just a Greg thing, but you need to understand why.
Yeah.
And I imagine that that was you as a child as well.
Yeah.
If you understand why somebody is asking you to do something, then you will get up right away and be like, yes, let me do that for you. But if you don't know why,
Yeah, like I was never belligerent or lazy. I was curious, and I'm still curious all the time. So it's like, yeah, I'll do the task, but what is the purpose of it? Why am I doing it? Not why am I doing it as in why should I bother? Why am I doing it as in I am already about to do it? What is the purpose of the thing that I'm doing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that. I mean, the specifics of my childhood for me were more about the upbringing and the fear. But I do remember a lot of just try harder, just focus. But I also remember a lot, particularly if I went from the age of 7 to 11, I didn't like school. I hated it. I wasn't a confident child, and in that environment, it was too noisy. But you hear that narrative a lot. Then you've got the fear when you go home about being judged because I was given an opportunity that my father wasn't given. And again, I'm not knocking him, but he was a war child. He grew up in tail end of the Second World War. That's a different environment. But I'm not there to live his life. Now I can have that conversation with him now, but when you're that age, you can't. So I understand where the pressure come from, but no, it didn't serve me well.
But I think that's part of that grief conversation of like, once you realize, I mean, my situation's a bit unique. So I think the grief came with a lot of anger because it wasn't just a case of why didn't anyone else know?
Yeah.
It was a case of people did know and decided to do nothing further about it. And I think part of that is that you look back and go, I was written off as this, that, and the other. But you knew that I wasn't. You knew that I had ADHD, but you still wrote me off for other things. And I think that a lot of kids now, like kids of your kids' generation, are not going to have to do any of that. They're not going to have to feel like that because we are more informed now.
I mean, that is, I got there was curiosity and I wasn't sure what ADHD diagnosis or the assessment and diagnosis was going to give me. They thought on the balance of probability that I did have it, then I have it. Yeah, I have got it. But what's been fascinating is, I've got a daughter who's 17 and a daughter who's 15. My son's slightly different because he's a little bit younger, and I think that the way that they emotionally mature, there's quite a big difference. But for them, it's like, we're curious about you, Dad, and two of them are, going to look to get an assessment themselves. They want to look into that, but they're like, you talking about ADHD. She said it's part of our conversation. It's our daily narrative. There's nothing special about what you're saying that we don't have, which gives me hope for the future. That actually, whether the workplace or people want to realise it's coming, and the narrative will change because the next generation are just going to force the change through.
Well, I think that's because the previous generation had the phrasing of your kid has ADHD, like they caught it.
Yeah.
Whereas the new ideology is you are ADHD because you were born with it. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
But there's stigmas back then. I mean, I got diagnosed in the 90s. It still wasn't a really nice time to be a neurodivergent anything,
Yeah.
including, let's be honest, it wasn't all that great to be queer either.
Yeah.
Whereas now, the discussions that are being had by the next generation of kids are so much more open and accepting that there's hope. There's this better future that we're seeing live.
I mean, Ash talks about it. She said it's natural. Their normal conversation is they don't use the word inclusive because it just is. And I'm thinking, I can't get my head around that. I don't know what that feels like. And not even specific to me about ADHD or neurodiversity. That's quite a sea change, which is good.
Yeah.
More questions?
Oh, okay.
Sorry to interrupt. Big T.
Big T.
There we go. This was asked a while ago. Do you get any rage that results in damaging or destroying things, mainly important things?
Yeah. Used to. Not so much. No, I'm not from a couple of years. I've been to anger management course a few times, um, but I think that was. It's weird because again, I don't know what is potentially the ADHD frustrations and what was childhood not recognizing anger, frustrations, and not having the emotional intelligence that I had to learn from my 30s onwards. But yes, rage, yes, smashing through a door, yes, kicking my car door, just yes. But then I also played rugby for 15, 16 years, so I always had that physical release, 2 or 3 times a week.
I think when I was younger, anger was shamed in my household. Anger was a very powerfully negative emotion. And because I didn't really know how to process it properly, I did have some really rough times in the past where lashing out happened a lot. And people would lash out at me, and I would lash out in return, and it would become a whole thing. And over the years, and with a lot of really good work with therapy, I've learned that anger itself is not negative. Anger is a survival emotion. It's a necessary emotion. It's how you feel it and how you express it that needs to be looked after. But yes, I used to be a very, very angry person. Now I've got a defensive streak, but I don't have rage to the same degree anymore.
It's interesting. You talk. I mean, I look back, and you always have got the fight, flight, or freeze. And I think if I ever felt backed into a corner, and if there was the frustration, would basically build and build and build, even if I didn't understand why. I went from fight to freeze over the period of time, because all I knew was I was being attacked. I didn't like what I was feeling, but I had no way of actually healthily understanding what the emotion was from, why I was feeling it, where it was coming from, why I felt threatened, even when I wasn't being threatened, so the whole perceived thing as well. But that's stuff that I'm still navigating with my own therapist.
Okay, more questions. Marcus, do ADHDers have to dedicate more time to studying due to possible distractions?
I'm personally attacked.
I've got a problem with this study. Now, I do study for work. I have to, because I have to do these annual courses, and I hate them. I've already had a conversation with our compliance director and said, we've got the coursework coming up, and it usually involves probably 15 or 20 hours of studying. But you have to read all this stuff for them to give you a test at the end, which you have to pass. So my argument is, I don't like that, because you're basically checking my memory, not whether or not I actually know. So why don't you give me the questions and allow me to find the answers to make sure that I'm learning the right things? And he said, well, you can't do it that way. And I said, but you're getting the right answers and I'm doing the work to find the right answers. So they've taken it away. But actually, I've since heard that they think that's quite an interesting way of doing it. Otherwise, all I'm doing is just, it's a test of memory. That's my own experience, which is a live experience at the moment.
I hate showing my work. Look, like this course, I'm almost finished. This course I'm doing, it no longer brings me dopamine because of a rejection sensitivity issue that I'm aware of, but it doesn't help the fact that there's no dopamine coming out of this course anymore. I want the end result. I want to give them the answers. I give them the answers, but I didn't show my work, and I fucking hate showing my work because, again, I gave you the right answer. Is the answer correct? Yes, it is. Okay. Why do you need me to show you how I got there? I got the right answer in my own words. I'm all good. So I struggle with studying. I've always struggled with studying. But, let somebody say one little thing on a friggin' TV show about some obscure fact, and I will tell, in 2 hours, I will have known everything there is to know, and I will tell you all of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's strange that you mentioned. I mean, I don't I've learned, but again, I don't know whether this is me adapting to the environment and the needs of my job. I get given a problem and I have to find a solution. My experience tells me that's the solution. Then you have to sit there and explain how you got to that. So I tend to sit in the offices with a whiteboard saying, well, if I went that way, that wouldn't work, this wouldn't work. It's as if I know the answer and I have to work back. But then trying to explain to people that process as best I can, they just look at you blankly going, well, how did you connect? Why did you discount that? Oh, well, because I did, because of this. You can see how everything gets interlinked. I haven't solved that one yet, but again, I just sometimes just feel like I'm speaking a different language, and I get frustrated. Which is, are you not listening to me? That's the right answer, and that's how you get there.
Because of the box, right?
Yes.
You're talking to people who think here, and that's fine. There's a function for that. But you don't think here. You think here, and they're like, I don't get how you did that. You're like, because you don't. Your brain didn't even entertain that possibility, whereas my brain couldn't not entertain that possibility.
Yeah.
Question from Paul.
Yep.
How did you both handle trying to unmask authentically, without feeling too vulnerable?
Part of me is just there. I'm just going to be me. And there are days where I just don't care. And because one of my biggest boundaries is being judged, judge me or shame me at your peril. That's such a strong boundary that I think I'm quite happy to try and be authentically me. The difficulty I then have is in the work environment, because it's a corporate environment. I have to wear a suit and a tie and this and this. I then probably mask up again, and I don't like doing that.
I think I realized one day in this journey that I could almost tell when the mask was trying to come up. Like I could just tell that the situation, I can't be me here. But I think for the most part, it's like you said, like this, my TikTok wouldn't exist if I hadn't gone, I'm sick to death of this masking nonsense. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten anywhere. I wouldn't have been able to do any of the stuff I've done. So it was that one day of just, fuck it. Don't want to mask anymore.
For you, how much of that is the masking and how much of that is just a confidence in terms of, I know obviously when you've got that confidence and your self-worth and your value are increasing, you're building upon it, it gives you the confidence to unmask. But the unmasking, a lot of it is just that judgment or fear of being judged for being something which people either don't recognise or don't understand. I just find it's an interesting correlation between where your self-confidence and your value in yourself that is allowing you to unmask regardless of any potential judgment that you might have, because you've just got to the point with, I don't care.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, because I think you put the mask on to fit in to prevent judgment, because you are a drone, essentially, right? You're pretending to be a worker drone, and everybody goes, well, you're a worker drone, so no problem.
Yeah.
But as time goes on and you pull the mask off and people go, ooh, look at you, you're different. Yeah, you do start to go, well, I don't care if people don't like what they see.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do it for you anyway.
I'm still early in the journey, but I still see it as, am I being stubborn and belligerent? Am I going to be something that I think I should be, or am I? But then again, that's imposter syndrome. Am I being something that I want to be or should be, or is this me?
Yeah.
Okay, more questions.
Okay.
Where was I? This is one from earlier. David Wright says, have you ever had any addictions or substance abuse?
Yes.
You don't have to go any further if you don't want to.
Yeah, short answer for tonight. Yes.
Yeah, short answer, yes.
Okay, next question. Chevy asks, do you have any noticeable struggles with medical anxiety For me, any sign of illness is a trigger.
Huh. I think I'm the opposite. I just assume I'll recover. But I think that's a learned behavior. I don't think that's ADHD. I think that's my upbringing. I was like, oh yeah, something hurts. It'll stop hurting eventually.
Yeah, I'm probably quite a bad patient, and if I'm ill or something's wrong, I will curl up into the fetal position and just everyone leave me alone, and I'll get better on my own. I don't need mothering. But then, if there's someone got to mother me, I have been told in the past, "Oh my God, you are a bad patient." So that's their fault, not mine.
Can I interject
Are
as
you,
well?
are you going to interject?
Just a little bit. Well, I think for me, I have a trauma response to illness. So if I feel myself, for me, it's obviously chronic pain and stuff. If I feel myself that getting worse, I go into a spiral of, oh my God, it's getting worse, it's getting worse, it's getting worse. And then something else is going to get wrong. Oh, they're going to take my ovaries next. And oh, what if something else is? And so for me, I overthink because of my own trauma. And I think the overthinking part of it is due to probably ADHD, might just be my personality, but I think it comes from a trauma response for me.
I have in the past had to be forced to go to a doctor or A&E because my brain just goes, I'll be all right. Like I said it in the live yesterday. I used to try a while ago. I was trying to whittle, and I had an accident with a whittling knife, and it was my finger. It was pretty bad actually, but at the time I was like, no, I mean we'll just wrap it up. It should stop bleeding eventually, and if it doesn't, I'll grab some super glue. And Perry's over here going, should I get my car keys? Do we need to go to the A&E? I'm like, no. Now it all worked out, but in hindsight, I probably should have gone and gotten stitches.
Yes.
But my brain just went, nah. I know first aid. I'll just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I used to use electrician's tape just to tape things up, like broken bones. Yeah, cuts, just electrician's tape. Not the healthiest thing, but no, not really bothered by the medical stuff, really.
Okay, let's go move on. Gav, does neurodivergence affect your ability to manage your life? Example, your finances.
It certainly did, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Loads.
My ridiculous spending on motor vehicles.
Yeah, my impulsiveness, especially with money, was insane. I spent most of my life broke because I just impulsively blew through money. And obviously, the emotional dysregulation can be so overwhelming at times. And in times of intense stress, I don't seem to buckle. I seem to try and somehow make it worse. So yeah, no, I don't. I've gotten a lot better, but yes, absolutely, it made at times it made living very difficult.
Yeah, that absolutely resonates. I think with independence and responsibility, but I've got kids, so that's sort of like has always been my default for the past 15, 16 years, which is the fear of, oh, if I fuck this up, they're affected, so not as bad. But again, I've just seen kayak come up. I had two kayaks, and then I wanted a paddleboard, so I bought a paddleboard, and I thought I should get a spare one because I've got children. So I live in a 2-bedroom place with two kayaks and two paddleboards. I don't need them, but I've got them.
Right, okay, I'm going to move on quickly because we're getting more and more questions.
Okay.
Marcus, have you noticed if ADHDers have greater out-of-the-box thinking, specifically with problem solving?
Yeah, I think, at least for me, I can't accept defeat. If somebody says this is the problem, it needs a solution, I'm like, it will get a solution. One way or another, I'm going to figure this out. Even though it might not necessarily need that kind of intensity, Dragonfly, all or nothing.
Yeah.
You want a problem solved, I will solve it.
Yeah, I cannot. I take it as a personal slant if someone says something can't be done. It It's not anger, but it's like, fuck you, this can be done. Even if it's not my responsibility, but certainly, from a work standpoint, yeah, I mean, the bigger the problem. You put it on the shelf and say that can't be done, I will go and dust it down and I'll go and find a solution. You might not understand what I've done, but it'll be a solution.
So,
But again, I think that's what served me well in my career, to be honest.
so when I was around 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, my stepdad at the time worked for a company called ICL. It was an old IT company.
Yep.
And they had a slogan on a lot of their, like he'd bring stationery and stuff home. And they had a slogan that said, "We will either find a way or make one." And that resonated with me so much that I've remembered it ever since. I'm like, if it doesn't have a solution, if it cannot be solved, I'm going to break that trend. Yeah. Somehow I'm going to force this thing to be solved.
And I think that's the beauty of having... I mean, that's the bit about the neurodiversity, that part of the way that our brains process information is giving people the platform to have a go. And if you give them the platform and provide the support and allow them to grow in the confidence, they can make a difference in whatever, even stuff that I can't even think of off the top of my head. Because if I can do it in the corporate environment where everything was you have to follow it, a set process, and manage to carve out something, Jesus, embrace it. No. It's really cool. It's one of my biggest joys in someone saying you can't do that. Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
See, I have the toxic trait of an ADHDer where I think I can do anything. If I see a video of it, especially on TikTok, I'll save it because I'll be like, I can do that. And then I'll hyper-focus enough so I can actually do that. And then after I've created one thing of that thing, I'll get bored and then find another video and go, I could do that. I currently think that I could make my own patio furniture out of pallets. I have so many saved things on my phone for pallet furniture for the garden.
I believed you, Perry. I thought, yes, why not? Do it now.
Right. Right, I've got 4 more questions, and we've got just shy of 15 minutes left. You ready? Oh my goodness. The people telling me I can do it and they've got pallets. Crap. Okay, so Greg, we're getting pallet furniture.
Okay.
Oh, I've now got another question. So let's go with Nick says, when you explain things, do you also freeze because of the amount of info you have to give?
No, but I have a side effect that's slightly different.
No, I'm joking.
If I need to explain something to you that is... So imagine the letters of the alphabet, and what I need to explain to you is V. I need to start at A. I need to give context. There has to be a reason why I'm explaining this thing to you, but I won't go, okay, before we get to V, let me start at A. I will start at V.
Yeah.
And probably end up at Z, and then go back to F, and then halfway through go, oh my God, I didn't mention A, and then mention A.
You don't just beat around the bush, you go for a nice old jolly around the fields first. But it's something I love about it, it's not a criticism.
I would say that I'm similar. However, some of the time the explanation is in my head and I forget to actually articulate my rationale. That's one of the key things where my kids had independently on drives home when I was taking them back to their mum said, they were like, Jesus, Dad, why can you not just start a fucking sentence? Because my daughter's beautiful the way she describes it. I'll be sitting there, you prattle on about something, and I'm looking at you going, do you understand it? And she's going, no, because that didn't make any sense. Then I have to explain. But at the same time, when I do explain it, I get really frustrated if the other person is not exactly following my rationale.
Yeah. And
so,
then, yeah.
Why are you not following what I'm saying? This is clear. I've absolutely explained this clearly. Why we start at V. I've taken you to Z.
Yeah.
We've popped into M and D on the way back. Then we've got to A. I've walked you back. I've then walked you forward.
Yeah.
You've got more than enough detail. Why are you looking at me blankly? I don't like people that do that to me.
The thing is, I try to, like, if I'm info dumping information and stuff to Perry, I now try to be like, what would the natural A of this discussion be. But Perry does this thing that tickles me every time. She will, and it's you can almost hear it as it happens. She is starting to talk halfway through the sentence because the sentence doesn't even start right. It doesn't start like a sentence. It starts like halfway through, and you're going,
in my head,
what was the beginning of that? And then she'll say that, and I'll have to like mentally piece the two together and go, oh yeah, I see what that means.
I think we've now, because we've spent so much time together and we've been so open and communicative about everything that's gone on and going on, I think we're able to understand our conversational flows now. And so if you're like full info dump mode and I'm not able to receive it, we've got our code of fire, bad, treat, pretty. If you're trying to get to a point by telling me about the world first and I'm impatient, then I'll be like, Greg, what's the point?
Yeah.
And you know that comes from love, and you take it with love. And so we've got those, which I think is a huge thing. I love it.
Good. That's quite lovely.
Got more questions.
Okay.
Siobhan says, do you over-explain everything when you're under pressure? For example, I got pulled over and I got off probably because I talked too much. I think we can say yes.
Yeah, I think it's a. I'm not. Thing is, I'm not entirely sure that's an. I won't try and go into it too much right now, but I don't think everything is an ADHD response. I think there are many things we do that are trauma-based responses from being treated differently because we had undiagnosed ADHD. So I think we placate the person we're talking to. So we over-explain ourselves to try and minimize judgment. The neurodivergence doesn't cause that. I think the way we were treated in many cases is what does that. Or in cases like yours and mine, Matt, with some background in anger and addiction issues in the past, I think we over-explain as a sort of penance.
Yeah, out of someone. I mean, it's interesting. It's something. It's a really good question actually, because it's making me think about the past and the now. If it's something that I'm passionate about, you'll get chapter and verse, and you'll fucking stand there and listen to everything I have to say. If it's something where I'm under pressure and I have to deliver, then you will get short, concise, and I'm expected to be trusted with what I'm saying. And if I'm not trusted, then I don't like that. But I understand that's not fair because I'm setting parameters based upon how another person has no idea how I'm feeling or what's important to me. But they should do. They should know what's going on inside my head.
Yeah.
TXB73 said, do you think unmasking makes you forget functional strategies?
No.
I think what I've noticed with my unmasking, I feel more confident. I feel more. I'm going to sound spiritual here. I'm not, but I suppose I am. I just feel more centered. It's like my internal compass is not off. And if I'm just being myself, I tend to feel happier, more confident before I worry about being judged because I'm carrying an orange ball when I've got it in my mouth, or, you know, all these little things.
Right. Eva, do neurodivergents have a higher pain threshold?
I can't speak. Neurodivergence and neurodiversity, I have a real issue with because it's such a broad umbrella.
Yeah.
And everything is sort of, you know, my symptoms are my symptoms. It's very individual to me, as it would be for you and everyone else. So I think it's too broad a statement to be able to give an answer. My pain threshold is if I stub my toe, the language would probably be quite blue. The chances are I will have a child tantrum over doing something either stupid or that it hurts. had quite bad breakages, and it's a bit like, oh, that's an inconvenience. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that it's different. I think Jill's saying the same. Like she said in the chat that her daughter has a really low pain threshold. I think pain, although some physicalities can be related to ADHD and autism and other different neurodiversities, I don't know that pain itself and the way we feel pain is related to that.
Yeah, because I think the other thing with that kind of concept of pain threshold and are our pain thresholds better or worse? Like, what yardstick have we got? Do Matt and I have to break a finger each and see whose reaction is bigger than the other? Because, like, I don't know what your pain threshold is. I just know how certain pains affect me, but I don't know that they would affect you better or worse. You know what I mean? Like,
It's a biological thing, not a
yeah, like,
neurodivergent thing.
and I've had a lot of breakages and a lot of cuts and a lot of bruises and concussions, and I don't know how other people cope with it. I just know how well or terribly I coped with it.
I might cope with the same injury differently over a 2-week period because of how I'm feeling emotionally, mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like that's a weird one because I don't know that there's any evidence to suggest that neurodivergency of any kind somehow comes with a pain threshold benefit.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're related. I mean, pain is related to your nerves. So if you have better or worse nerves, then yeah, your pain threshold is going to be different.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 2 more questions, and then that's the end of the questions.
Okay.
Tammy has asked, now this is, you ready? I need to make sure I read this right. Tammy says, if I were to say my brain processes info in the abstract, do you feel like that makes sense to you?
Yes. Yeah. I would say that if I were to explain a thought process after it had happened, if I could, I would say that my steps were esoteric. They were not logical immediately. There was an abstract way that my brain leapt from step to step. Yeah.
I'm not as eloquent or erudite as you using words like abstract.
How verbose.
That's also learned behaviour. That's not ADHD at my moment. It's brain.
So Greg went to finishing school.
Yes. You should see him when he practices with the books on his head. Okay, last question from
Okay.
Paul. Any unmasking tips? In general.
I just lean into it. Lean into what it feels like, and if it feels uncomfortable, I suspect you're doing the right thing.
I think learning to, difficult as it is, there's a lot of stages to it, but learning to love yourself will help you unmask, because once, like Matt said earlier, once you're more confident in yourself, once you care about yourself more, once you treat yourself better, you will feel the power and the confidence that comes with saying, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to mask anymore, because I don't care about other people's judgment. I know who I am, or at least enough.
I think my arm doesn't need to snap. From a professional side.
Yeah.
So in the company that I've been there nearly a year and a half. For the first 6 months, I was told by my boss I had to act a certain way because my natural wasn't corporate. It wasn't to be people wouldn't take me seriously. I wouldn't gain respect. That boss left, and when they left, I just thought, fuck it. I'm going to be me. I'm just going to be myself. And I unmasked to the point of being comfortable with it. So I started being silly. I showed my hyperactivity. I showed the quirky and the me being a bit weird. I started dyeing my hair in chunks again. And since then, I have had a 40% pay rise and a promotion, and now get a foot under the table, a seat, foot under the table, seat at the table, whatever. But I have now been embraced more for being more me. And so I think if you are able to bring it to a point where you can unmask, where you feel safe, you feel comfortable, but people can actually see who you are, it will do wonders for you.
I think I think that's amazing. But I go back to what you were saying, Greg. It starts with self-love. If you don't love yourself in whatever form that is, and you don't have that value in yourself, and you stop putting your value in other people and other people's thoughts, feelings, comments, seeking validation from other people, I think that's just a really strong platform to unmask confidently without bouncing back into I have to mask because I'm fearful.
I think it's a reality that dawned on me after a while, after some work. Don't get me wrong, you put work in to get it, but
yeah.
I think we have been taught or sort of informed by the world around us that people will tell you who you are. And I think that's the incorrect logic. People shouldn't be telling you who you are. You should be telling them.
Yeah.
And I think once you flip that equation around and realize that the reality comes from you, you'll start to feel the mask slip. And you'll start to go, hang on, I'm pretending to be what you tell me to be, but none of that makes me happy.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you who I am. I'm going to tell you what I like. I'm going to tell you what I don't like. And if you don't like any of that, then I will find someone else who does. And it's that. It's realizing your self-worth and saying, I'm a human being, goddammit. My life has value.
Yeah. But I think it's quite the journey when you've listened to such a negative narrative and been in a place of so much, to whatever extent, judgment and shame. And I think it's so much harder the older you get, because the longer you've listened to that and the longer that narrative has been played back and back and back, and you then become that person that you've heard. Yeah. So that self-worth and validation has always come from the wrong place, which is external. But it's tough. Don't deny it.
So that is the end of the questions, and the end of your official Q&A. There has been talk in the chat of us creating T-shirts that say, sorry, I'm probably going to interrupt. And also T-shirts that say, my brain processes info in the abstract. So that is TBC.
Okay. Yeah, I like those.
That is, thank you very much for letting me moderate your Q&A session, chaps.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have a chat. Appreciate it. Love to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Love you all in the comments.
Bye. Thanks all.